This is a lesson tutorial on how to divide decimals by decimals. So let's take a look at how it would look pictorially. So if we have a problem here, you see the divisor is 0.5, 5/10, or we could also say that's 1/2, and the dividend is 1.5, 1 5/10, or 1 1/2. So when you divide a decimal by a decimal, the question you ask yourself is, how many 0.5s are there in 1.5? If you think about it, how many groups or how many pieces of 0.5 are in the number 1.5? I have it here pictorially using fraction bars, and you can see that the answer is there's one group of 0.5, there's another group of 0.5, and a third group of 0.5. So the quotient ends up being 3. Now you look at yourself and you say, how do we get an answer of 3 in a problem like that? How is it that the quotient is larger than either the divisor or the dividend? Well, we do that because we're, again, asking how many of a piece, 0.5 halves, are in 1 1/2. How many halves are in 1 1/2? Thinking about it that way, you can see that the answer would be a whole number. So now let's take a look at the rules. To divide by a decimal, you do the following. First of all, you can never have a divisor that has a decimal in it. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of the decimal point in the divisor. To do that, you move the number of places you have to make it a whole number. So in this case, I've had to move it one place. I moved it from 5/10 to now it's 5. When I do that, I have to do the corresponding thing in the dividend. I have to move the decimal point the exact same number of places as you moved it in the divisor. So I moved it there 1, so I now have to move it in the divisor 1 place. And then you divide normally. So my problem now is 5 into 15. We all know dividing normally, I would say that's a 3, 15. And so then I multiply to double check. So I go into the original problem and I take 0.5 times 3. That's taking my quotient by my divisor, and I'm looking to get my dividend. 3 times 5 is 15. I go in and multiplying decimals. I see I have one place. So I start here and move my decimal one place over, and I get 1.5, which agrees to what my dividend is. So what you do essentially by moving that over is move it one place here and one place here. You're multiplying by a 10. I'm multiplying 5/10 by 10 and moving that decimal. If I multiply the divisor by 10, I have to do that to the dividend. 1.5 would be moving it over one place in 15. So let's do one more problem. Let's say I have 2.2 and I'm looking to divide it into 0.43. Okay, so in this case, first thing you do is get rid of the decimal place in the divisor, the first step. So I've moved it over 1. So in this case, if I move it over 1, it's right there. And now I divide normally. Can 22 go, how many times does 22 go into 43? Only once. 1 times 22. I subtract. And I have a 21. 21, in fact, is less than 22. Now, we also know we no longer have, and I pop up the decimal point right there. But now that you're in 5th grade, you know we no longer have remainders, but instead we take it out to a certain place. So let's say I say round to the nearest 10th. So I would have to if I'm rounding to the 10th, I have to take it out to the hundredths place. So I'm going to put in another 0 there. I'm going to bring down. It certainly doesn't change the value when I put the 0 there. 0.43 is the same as 0.430. Now I'm going to say, how many times does 22 go into 210? I'm going to try a 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times 2 is 18 and 1 is 19. I subtract. This becomes a 0. This becomes a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. To subtract again. 10 minus 9 is 1. I would then check my answer. If I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, I would say that even though I still have a remainder, rounding to the nearest tenth would mean I would round up, and my answer to this problem would be 0.2. Let's do one more as a sample. Okay, let's say I have 0.7 and the dividend is 73. Let's make this easy. Let's say the dividend is 735. So what happens is if I have to get rid of this decimal point, I move it one spot. So in my dividend, you see no decimal. That means the invisible decimal point is at the end of the whole number. So if I have to move it one place, I add a 0. So now my new division problem is 7 into 7,350. 7 into 7 is 1. 1 time I bring down the 3. 7 goes into 3 0 times. I'm now looking at bringing down the 5. 7 into 35 is 5 times. Multiply it out. I bring down the other 0. I have 0. So the answer to my problem is how many 7/10ths go into 735? The answer would be 1,050. I check that out on the side here by multiplying 0.7, my original divisor, by my quotient, which is 150. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 0 is 0. And 3 is 3. 7 times 1 is 7. And I have one decimal place here. So over here, I move my decimal one place over. I get 735, and that matches my original dividend of 735. So that's it for now. I hope this helps you in understanding dividing decimals by decimals.